the whole situation in hospitality is that you deal with people from all over the world, and you have to embrace it. And if you have crazy people you have to deal with, you have to embrace it even more.
Welcome back. Today we have a different constellation because my co-host Florian is actually on the construction side of building a beautiful fish restaurant in Hamburg, Überseequartier. And that's why I invited an old friend and future partner of that venture as a co-host here. First of all, welcome Axel as my co-host here.
Yes, thank you very much, Mario. I'm very happy to join. I'm following the podcast for such a long time, so I'm a little nervous, but also super enthusiastic to assist.
The good thing is today you can ask the questions which normally you sit on the phone and say why he hasn't asked that. But now we need to introduce our guest. It's a very special guest and friend of both of us, Chris Hoffmann, one of the co-founders of 25 hours. And 25 hours is, and I don't say that because he's here, literally my favorite chain to sleep, because it gives me the right moments to relax and also gives me the right energy when I'm there. So I'm a really huge fan since the beginning. 25 hours was set up 20 years ago by 4 entrepreneurs. It currently operates 15 hotels in 7 countries. And the brand was sold and integrated in the lifestyle from Anismore, which is owned by Accor. And this cooperation, and we're going to talk about that, unlocked a tremendous growth potential. And we're going to see 9 more hotels are in the pipeline, I heard, in 6 new countries, including Indonesia and Australia. 25 Hours has around 2,000 employees and almost 40 culinary outlets, including Neni, who was on the podcast last week here with us. And we're going to talk about that. Chris Hoffmann is also the co-founder of Bikini Island and Mountain Resorts, with currently 2 hotels and a huge appetite to grow. Welcome, Christoph.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to, it's a surprise to have you as well, Axel. So even nicer to have
friends meet friends, a small world and a quite international call. Yeah. We have you, Christoph, calling in from Switzerland. Probably then Axel from Portugal and myself from Sri Lanka. So let's start. I read up, Christoph, that the motto of 25 hours is you know one and you know none. And when I read that, it came to my mind that you as a creator always have to start from zero. And when one hotel, let's say Paris or Tuscany or Dubai, works and you hit the nail and everything looks perfect, you don't recreate that the next time. You have to start from zero again. And on the one hand, for creative, maybe that's something great, but isn't that exhausting to always start from zero, Christoph?
Yes and no. I think, we didn't, when we decided to go this way, it was not done strategically, and we didn't have that plan or, kind of mission or vision to say we have to be always individual. It came in from an intrinsic motivation, because we never wanted to do hotels as a business to grow quick and to be to be on the fast track and to become, in the first place, a profitable business. We were always very much about trying to create something which we are proud of, which is something new to the market. And I think if you go this way, and if you also combine it, we started with the storytelling. Each and every hotel has to have its own story. Each hotel has to have its own F&B concept and so forth. If you start like that, you are, kind of forced to go this way. And back then, when we decided to go this way, we didn't know that this will become even more successful for the value of our brand at the end of the day, being not standardized, but being individualized. So, of course, it takes longer. It's more effort. But I assume, and with everything I have done together with my colleagues, my team, we've done it because we had fun doing it. We had one saying in German, Spaß an der Freude. It's more like a Southern German saying, I think. And I still kept that. You need to have, fun of what you want to do. And as long as you are excited about starting a whole new venture, let's say in Jakarta or in Florence or wherever we're going to go in Portugal, Axel, in Porto, it's so much more fun to reshape and rethink what hospitality means in a place like Porto. And then don't forget about the fact that, times are changing. Why should we do brand standards everywhere and have policies and procedures? I think you have to be adaptable and also flexible on certain things. So I think it was a good choice.
Very cool. Let me jump on the fun thing, Christoph, because for me it's very interesting. I mean, you founded the company in 2025, or was it 25? Yeah, with your partners, and I know actually all of them, and I would say we have a team of alpha animals here. So the fun thing, Spaß and Freude, was it always like this, or was it sometimes also a challenge when you had to make decisions? Were you always aligned, or how important was it for the 25 hours brand that the four of you were basically working well together? Or tell us.
Well, I think, we're not always aligned, not at all, but we never had any major fights or really serious discussions. And I think one thing which I still appreciate up until today is that my three fellow shareholders, I was managing the company, and the three others were shareholders only, but they were much more. Of course, they were mentors, they were supporters. But the most important thing that they gave me was trust and freedom. If I would have not had the chance to create that company without the total trust from Stefan, Arden, Kai back then, I think, and the freedom to do things which they may have not liked in every aspect, I think I would not have been that successful. We have not been that successful. So that to me was like one of the most important things I've learned. And I hope, and I think that I was forwarding that trust relationship also to all the people who then worked with me on a day-to-day basis. And those people who I've hired from the very beginning, Bruno, Henning, Michael, later on Flo and Steffen, they became really, really important for me, and vice versa, because without them, the whole thing would have not worked, next to many, many other people who started working with us. And it was always, at least from my point of view, maybe some people will take it differently, but from my point of view, it was always based upon freedom and trust. In the very beginning, we even used terms like, we want to be a bit more anarchistic. We want to, don't have a solution for everything, but just let it go. And I think sometimes we, of course, screwed up as well, but all together, I think it was a good approach.
Christoph, when we interviewed here entrepreneurs, and we had a lot of entrepreneurs who set up business together with others, not with four strong alpha, but like with another one, etc. You always hear different comments and advices retrospective in terms of like, if you have to advise young entrepreneur how to set up business, do you recommend partnerships, especially under the lens of crisis? Because this podcast is about crisis, and we come to that in a second. It's called From Doubt to Drive, and it basically puts the focus on looking on how entrepreneurs or how companies react in crisis. And especially in a crisis, do you think for you it was an advantage to have a sounding board of other entrepreneurs, or is it sometimes you're not agile enough? You think it's an advantage?
It was for me. It was. I think it's an individual decision one has to make, and it also depends on the kind of business. I can only work by collaborating. My whole life was about collaboration, about contacts, about network, about inspiration. And in this particular case, together with my three shareholders, it was not always the formal advice of, I don't know, how to do the best, negotiation with the bank in when we are in a critical situation or whatever. It was more the feeling about, having someone next to you. It really helped to have
not to feel alone.
Really deep feeling. Yeah, not to feel alone. And of course, to have someone who you can sit down together with, and where you feel that we are aligned on certain things, and we are really all focused on the mission, on the business. And that really helped me. If I would have been alone, I would never have reached the goal we have, or the result we have reached at the end of the day. And I would always, at least if I would have to give advice to myself, which is kind of difficult, I would always go along with other people, because I also appreciate that I don't know a lot of things. That's my framework is not that I'm specialized in anything. I'm specialized in perhaps bringing people together, creating ideas and some other things. But for that very reason, I need other people to deal with. And I think it is the case in many businesses, not in all of them.
Mm. Before we come to the crisis part, which Axel will lead, I want to go one step to my favorite in this podcast, which is the topic of Schwellenangst, which is a term which you obviously as a German speaker understand, but for the listeners, it's the fear of threshold and borders. And especially when you set up a company, we normally don't talk about the Schwellenangst in a business context, but it's something which is with us entrepreneurs all the journey, because there's this big obstacle to become an entrepreneur, to give up a job and to realize that dream. And it's sometimes very difficult to take that step, because it's a step into the unknown. And then the Schwellenangst comes back maybe several times. Should I sell? Should I buy? Should I do, like on the big decisions? Can you guide us through your journey when there was a moment when you experienced such a feeling? Was there any time when you had that, and how you overcame that?
I think, I mean, it may sound a bit awkward, but if there was a time in my life so far where I had this kind of Schwellenangst, it's probably more now than back then. And I try to explain a little bit. Back then means going back to 2003, 4, 5. It was until I decided to become an entrepreneur. I mean, many things happened before. I was for quite some time, a happy-go-lucky hotel employee. I worked in different hotels. I traveled the world. I had a quite stable position in Hamburg, Germany, at the Hotel Louis C. Jakob. Before then, I was at the Atlantic, and I really appreciated for some time to be in this, Kempinski, Relais Chateau, leading hotels environment. I loved working in luxury hotels. It was cool, but I never made enough money, number one, or I spent too much money. You can look at it the way you want it. And number two, I slowly but surely had the feeling that the decisions made by others were not always aligned with my decisions. And that I was always very keen on having a free mind and trying to do things which are maybe outside the box. And at some point, I was around 34, 35, I decided to do something on my own. And the initial idea was kind of romantic and maybe a bit naive. I wanted to find a small little Relais Chateau property in the south of France and run it together with my wife, Petra, the Hotel Pastis dream, or the Peter Mayle kind of dream every hotelier had back then. And I'm lucky, looking back at it now, that that dream never came true, but it was my first trial. I took a car, I went to the south of France, to Switzerland. I looked around for opportunities, but I realized that with 14, 15 rooms and a high lease and no money in the background, it's really, really difficult to run that business. And I already knew back then that I want to be free. I don't want to spend a whole season with no day off on one property, working from 6 to midnight. That was not my option. So I was looking further around, but by then I was already I was 100% sure that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And then many things happened. And since I started from kind of nothing, and I was lucky to have, put together Kai Hollmann, Stefan and Ardi and myself to create 25 hours, there was no Schwellenangst because I started I didn't have much to lose, honestly.
Mm.
And we started.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah. It's like the beginning was just like I was excited because we had the first hotel, small little property in Frankfurt. We leased it from Ardi. We had like our first pre-opening budget. With that pre-opening budget, I could hire some people. We had one rule and one basic common understanding, which was we don't want to make any debts with banks or with owners. We want to grow organically. So I didn't make a lot of money, but there was no huge debt on bank accounts or anything. So there was no immediate feeling of pressure from other stakeholders. And that might have helped in the beginning to go through that whole phase in a, positive, perhaps sometimes naive kind of way, but it just worked. And we were lucky because we were also in the right place at the right time. But no, there was no Schwellenangst. There's a bit more Schwellenangst now because after we sold the business, of course, we made some money, which was very good, especially for me and for the others. It gave me, or I thought it would give me more freedom because I'm more independent now. And if anybody, tells me something, I don't have to follow because I'm quite, I can do what I want to do. I would survive. But now it's more of a Schwellenangst because I'm kind of, sometimes it's difficult for me to say, okay, now I leave everything I have created or all the security, the whole thing. It's the typical thing. So I have, in a kind of a way, I have more Schwellenangst today. And I'm 59 now. I could say, forget about everything I have done over the last 15 years. Let me start something totally new. And then I start thinking about, but it's great to work with Ennismore. It's great to be still involved in the 25 hours development. It's great to be together with Kai, Ardi, Stefan, Christian at the Bikini venture, which we still do on our own. Why should I start something totally new? So that's the kind of Schwellenangst I'm experiencing.
You're in good company because Summa founder Rainer Becker shared with us that he also had no Schwellenangst whatsoever in the early beginnings, but now being successful and have proven himself around the world, he feels much more Schwellenangst. Anyway, Axel, let's go to the crisis.
Now, may I just improvise for a second?
Sure.
Because for me, it's very obvious to ask Christoph something about his life now with Ennismore, just talking about all the freedom and all the flexibility and creativity. Ennismore, a collective of brands driven by founders, Christoph. How has your life changed now? I mean, from your own business as an entrepreneur with your partners, now you're in a big company. Can you still lead by trust?
Well, the question number one is how much of a leader am I still? And of course, I'm questioning that every once in a while because I'm not a CEO of the company anymore. And sometimes I miss to be, in that position. Sometimes I don't. I mean, there's pros and cons. I still hope that I can have that I'm not a leader, but that I can add value to certain aspects of Ennismore's, growth and what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. What I appreciate is the whole venture became much more international and global. I have exposure to people, to situations, to hotel projects, to know-how I never had before. While I'm, involved in a project such as Jakarta, Mario mentioned Indonesia, or the whole project. I was heavily involved in Dubai. I was not a big friend of Dubai in the beginning. I was kind of getting convinced by my colleagues from Ennismore to go ahead with the Dubai project. And looking back at it now, it was a great experience. And these things I really appreciate. Can I still be involved in that whole venture based upon trust? I try my best. I haven't changed, I believe. I try not to change. And yeah, I hope I can convince as many people as possible that trust and a good relationship and fun are the are the core values for running a good company, a hotel company, where fun and, appreciation and beauty is the core of the business. It's all about enjoying a good F&B experience and so forth. But I'm speaking too much, right? Mario, Axel?
Oh, good.
It's
No,
okay.
you're the guest. You should speak.
Okay.
You can speak as much as you want.
Okay.
But okay. Thank you so much. Talking about crisis, I mean, looking back on, or let's say, challenges, looking back at the growth and the development of 25. I mean, there were certain situations, I think, where you struggled and you had maybe doubts. How can I take the challenge? How can I succeed? Sorry. What put you back on track when you were in these kind of situations?
Well, I take one example. I mean, I never had. I always. It sounds so idealistic and everything, but I never had any doubts really. I was always very optimistic that things would somehow work out. We had a few really big crises. Not talking about the pandemic because everyone had that crisis, but let's say one of our major crises was the fire we had at the Altes Hafenamt, a small property in Hamburg, Hafen City. We just opened the property and one night a fire started in the restaurant and one person got even heavily injured. And for a few weeks, we were not sure if the person would survive. And number two, we were like, in the beginning, we were not even aware that the damage was so big. And we had some real big issues with the insurance company and stuff like that. So that was like a essential and elementary crisis. And I think the reason why I stayed optimistic and why I didn't, and it's not only me, it was like the whole team and everyone, stayed optimistic and we were fighting through it, was really the collaboration of people who I worked together with. If I would have had only people next to me who would have said, oh Jesus, no, that's disaster. And, I don't know how to move on. But everyone around me was really like pushing for finding a solution on it. And then like step by step, it worked. So again, it's also about people, about collaboration. It's about, trusting each other. Maybe it's a similar aspect of it, but I never had a situation really where it said, okay, this is going to be the end of it. Maybe with a pandemic for a little while, but, not even then. Really.
So strong team and trust.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Very, very good. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned COVID. I mean, that was a crisis for all of us, and the black swan never seen before. We spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to Mary, to a lot of people about this special situation, once in a lifetime, hopefully. How did you stay strong as a leader in these days? Because nobody knew exactly how long does it take. Where are we going?
I don't know if I stayed strong or honestly, we just focused on maybe not enough things. Looking back at it now, we should have focused more on the team. How can we keep the team together? We focus very much, of course, how to survive, how to make the business, survive. How can we deal with the landlords? How can we deal with the banks? How can we make sure that cash flow is kind of safe? Because we knew for a long time, or we didn't know for a long time, if we would get any support. If we would have known that much earlier, I think we would have done a lot of things differently because we lost a lot of good, people, within the team. Because our focus was not too much on that. I think it was not a mistake looking at it from back then, but looking at it from today, knowing that we got sufficient support from the government, at least in Germany and Austria and a little bit in Switzerland. I think we could have done things differently, but nobody knew. So it's all okay. But, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like an optimistic person. I don't know.
I think it's
like
super important.
That's a theme also, I think, of your appetite and curiosity to grow. On that struggle topic, before we move to the next one, now you started building hotels in the, let's say, comfort zone in Germany, then went to Austria, then went to Switzerland, then went European, let's say, with Florence and Copenhagen, and then let's call it crazy with Dubai and Jakarta and Australia. If you and you met a lot of people because your style, as you said, is collaborative and you really integrate yourself in that. If again, in terms of struggles and roadblocks and problem solving, do you see major differences in all these cultures you have worked in, how people react in a situation where there's a little bit more tension or even crisis?
Of course, yeah. Maybe that was one of the most interesting experiences to see all the cultural differences and how you deal with, I mean, not only with crisis, but with a project as such. I mean, every project has a lot of crisis. I mean, just take one hotel project. It takes you, I don't know, 2 to 6, 7, or maybe sometimes even longer years. The 25 hours hotel in Langstrasse, Zurich, took us from signing to opening 7 years. And of course, there have been many crises within that project only. And if you then take the approach of how to deal with people in Switzerland and compare it with Dubai or with Jakarta, of course, there's so many differences. And
so from whom can we learn? From which culture can we, as a, let's say, Germanic people can take something, and what can we take? Is there better problem-solving mode out there than the one in our blood?
No, ideally, I haven't thought about that a lot of times, but I think nobody could learn from anyone because everyone has his or her own approach of doing things or cultural things. But the ideal thing when it comes to hospitality, and again, I'm not talking about pharmaceutical banks or whatever kind of business. I'm talking about hospitality. Hospitality to me is in its core a collaboration of people from all over the world. So the core of creating a hotel ideally should have lots of influences. And I'm like simplifying now to have an Italian designer like Paola Navone, together with Middle Eastern developer, and maybe a Swiss project director is a perfect combination. And Dubai was maybe one of those examples. Dubai, the project in Dubai, and that's typical maybe for the Middle Eastern projects. You have a lot of people being involved, lots of consultants, lots of project managers. Sometimes I didn't even understand anymore who was doing what, and who's playing which role. We have one project right now in Neom, and I just jumped off a call from another design meeting. I think there were like 25 people in the call. And those people, they come from all over the world. Literally, I'm sure that we had at least 40, 45 nationalities within that call. And I think that makes it so exciting, because the mix of it creates the product in a way as well. Of course, it would be always ideal. Now I'm becoming very, very cliche, but to have a Swiss project director might make more sense. I'm generalizing than to have an Italian project director. But on the other hand,
question is who is more fun? Who is more fun,
exactly.
Christoph?
Exactly. Yes. And imagine you would only have Swissies and Germans making a hotel. It would be a very serious hotel, I'm telling you. When we started, I have to say, when we started our business, we were mostly Germanic, Swiss. Bruno was there from the beginning, and it was still good. So it's a lot of cliche, but what I like about the whole situation in hospitality is that you deal with people from all over the world, and you have to embrace it. And if you have crazy people you have to deal with, you have to embrace it even more. And then you just, the product becomes different. And since we say, one, none, it's even easier for us to say, so shit, fuck it. We have a different project because our partners in Indonesia have a very different approach of doing things, but maybe that approach is even more beneficial for the hotel in Jakarta. So let's deal with it and let's make the best out of it. And I think that should be, at least for a brand like 25 Hours, this works. It may not work if you have a Courtyard by Marriott, where you have like a very, standardized procedure on many things. You cannot go wild and just say, okay, let's try something new because we have a new partner in that.
Christoph, you gave me now with like embrace the crazy ones, the hint to the next topic, which is about the people. When you create this storyline and experiences, you work with the local designers, you get the hospitality set up, and let's say you build a beautiful stage or the right stage for that hotel. But then you need to hire the actors. The hotel lives by the people, by the service. And your service style is special because obviously you expect a certain outspoken, own opinionated staff there. Yeah, a boring, let's say, Hilton receptionist, without offending anybody, wouldn't fit to your style. How do you find these people? How do you? Because the brand lives literally by the actors. It doesn't live by the stage. And you're so depending on these actors who are out of the norm, I would say. That's how I would describe them. How you keep that crazy ones in a certain frame, because also they cannot be too crazy, obviously. They still cater a hotel. How do you manage that spagat, so to say?
I don't know exactly, but let me start and then we'll see what comes out of what I'm saying. And I want to start with the boring Hilton receptionist. That very same person being a boring Hilton receptionist, would he or she work with us, might become a very enthusiastic, funny, open-minded 25 hours receptionist. I think it's not so much about finding, and we could not afford finding only, personalities who have in their blood and in their veins and in their like whole personality, the 25 hours idea of how to approach guests. It's not the case, not at all. And we are far from perfect when it comes to that. Of course, now with the number of hotels we have and the amount of employees we have all over the world, we have trainings, we have, we try to teach, the staff when it comes to how to approach the guest, what are, what is the company's culture and values and blah, blah, blah. But when we started the whole thing, we didn't have anything like that. We started, and it helped a lot to grow organically, really, because everything was in 1, 2, or 3 hotels. They were not far away from each other. Christoph, Bruno, Henning, you name it. They were around, and they were the first maybe ones who gave already some sort of an cultural impression to the people. Culture is the wrong word, but how do we deal with guests? How are we going to be different? And I think it came really out of our intrinsic motivation to be different, to be more relaxed about it, not to be the servant. We started very early by saying, in our places, the guest is not the king, as we say in German. We want to communicate on eye level. You have the freedom to decide many things behind the reception when you have situation A, B, C. We don't want to standardize all those things we have started with. And for some reason, it stayed alive to a certain degree. Of course, if you come to our Dubai property, the experience in the Dubai property is very different than if you go to Berlin or to Frankfurt, which is okay, as long as we can achieve like a common denominator when it comes to the balancing act of being relaxed as an employee, but yet at the same time being professional. And we try our best, and it becomes. I hope that also the way we design hotels and the way we create hotels in the very beginning brings people together who would think differently when it comes to an approach to the guest and to services than if we create a Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons. I mean, the surrounding of the hotel, that's a bit of a different story. But if you start working in a Four Seasons or in a Ritz-Carlton, only the walls, the surroundings, the uniform, everything tells you as a member of staff how to act in a way. But if you come to one of our properties, you quickly realize, oh, this is a kind of a different environment.
Right. Yeah.
They expect different things from us, so that helps as well. But okay, I told you in the beginning I wouldn't know. I didn't know how I end up with my answer. I hope you got a little bit.
I hope you were happy with it.
Yes,
may I
I
ask
don't
a
know.
question?
Yeah.
Christoph, listening exactly to this topic, do you think your strong culinary passion and focus supports this strongly, this experience? It's a different experience when you come to a 25-hour hotel.
I'm not sure if I understand correctly. You mean how my culinary passion is related to the 25? No.
25 hours stands for a very special culinary experience, food and drink. You have the restaurants with some with higher, you have the extraordinary bars in most of your properties. So this creates a different environment and a different experience in the hotel. And do you think that also supports the idea you just mentioned?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very interesting aspect. I mean, we could talk about F&B more if you want to, but what you just mentioned is like, let's take Neni as an example. And it's not, there is a potential for conflicts as well. We experienced it in the very beginning when we did our first two properties in Frankfurt, not with Neni, but with the Adinas brothers. I think with Thomas Haus and others. We strongly believe from the beginning that F&B in the public space has to have its own profile, its own identity. It should not be considered a hotel restaurant. We hated that term anyways. We wanted to have F&B heroes becoming our partners in the hotels. And it was more like a coincidence that I got to know Haya and that we became friends and that we loved the brand Neni from the beginning, even though it was pretty small. They only had one restaurant at the Nash Market. But we believe we fit together like Topf und Deckel. But what does it mean if the culture of a Molcho family, just as an example, comes into our property to Berlin and uses up, I would say 70% of the public space and maybe even 90% of the experience within the public space while going to a restaurant. It automatically creates a new additional impact on what the values are, how you treat the guests, and so forth. And I never thought about it that much before you asked me that question, Axel. But I think it was also very important. It was a very, very good additional. It gave us a very good inspiration to modify our way of dealing with guests in a way, because we of course we didn't want to kill the Haya or the Molcho kind of approach to guests. And it's a very relaxed, very friendly, very, bohemian way of dealing with guests. And I think we took a lot from that into other areas of the business. So it's very important. Take Jörg Meyer, for example, with whom we did a lot of bars. I still remember until today how I had discussions with Jörg, and I love those discussions about just like stupid discussions about the uniforms, or do people need behind the bar a name badge? Because I love name badges for very personal reasons, because I could always say, "Oh, Axel, how are you today?" without forgetting his or her name when I come back to the hotel. But Jörg told me, "Christoph, are you crazy? Name badges in a cool bar? Never, ever. I mean, if we do name badges, we do it like Charles Schumann, maybe with the initials, but no more than that." Or the discussion about drinking alcohol behind the bar during your shift. It was, and we've learned a lot here in all the discussions with Jörg, because he said, if I have a bar, of course I need to, we need to have some regulations when it comes to drinking alcohol as a member of staff during shift. But on the other hand, if we have like a cool guest coming and he wants to have one drink with you, you need to find a solution on that. And you cannot create like one pagers of how you not drink alcohol during a shift. Lots of things we have learned from all those discussions with Jörg, with Haya, and all the others who we dealt with in the past.
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Need to think more about that. Yeah.
Mario.
Yeah.
Yes, as we come towards the end, I want to wrap it up, Chris, with our kind of signature question, which drives this whole initiatives from DAO to Drive, because it's always to, on the one hand, share the stories and give the confidence, because that's a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, so to say. And the last one is kind of the signature piece on what advice to give to somebody who struggles. And the question to lead into that topic is, like, if you imagine somebody you like and know, an entrepreneur and fellow entrepreneur, whatever industry, comes to seek your advice in a very, very difficult situation. No more energy left, really struggle, big roadblock ahead, existence angst, the real fear of existence. And this person lands in your hotel or in your private home and seeks for advice. What's the tool set Christoph Hoffmann as a mentor, as the stronger one in that situation, would apply to give a perspective and actually the drive back to this person? What would you do or recommend to struggle fellow entrepreneurs?
That's a difficult one. Trying to get some examples. I don't know. I mean, it depends so much on the person, on the situation. And it's so easy sometimes, from my point of view, because I'm doing well, I'm in a very comfortable situation. And if I imagine someone shows up, a good friend of mine, who's in, diaper need, and that he's just about to, I don't know, go bankrupt or whatever. I don't know. I think I would try to connect him with the right people. Would I do that because then I don't have to deal with the situation anymore, and it's an easy, I have this and that person who could help you. But what I would try is really, with the best I can bring into the game, is perhaps to find the right people to help if you have a problem. And maybe I am one of them, because I am maybe specialized in one of the problems the person has. But I think my advice would be always find the right people who can assist, who can help, who give you the advice, who give you the money, who give you the know-how, whatever the situation is. But at the moment, I have no better idea or better answer than this. Of course, apart from being empathetic about the situation and trying to really listen, but I think the real support is by putting this person up with the right people.
I think what we have learned in that session so far is that there is some common themes on when people struggle, and the common themes are, on the one hand, and you touched that over COVID, etc., is resilience. Yeah, really kind of strengthen that entrepreneur to walk him through, because we need a resilient, healthy person as a leader, because it leads to the second one, which is really self-care. We always see that people who sleep enough, eat good, have enough air, are better leaders, especially in crisis. Yeah, we also see what you mentioned before, the collaboration with the team. You said, like, the team was carrying you through in that fire accidents, like really encourage the leader to open up and engage with their team, because the help maybe is already around. And I think by sharing that story is what you did. I think you were not even aware that you shared that wisdom, because you shared on how you reacted in that. And I think your biggest asset, I think, would be for me when I'm in a crisis and reach out to you, is your positive approach. Yeah, because I think it's always the perspective of somebody in the room, and you're a very bright person. You share that positives and open-mindedness to new ideas and collaboration. And I think if people are surrounded by you in crisis, they have a bright light they can hug, and sometimes that's all what we need. So Axel, that was fun to have a new co-host and a common friend.
Was okay for dich?
Was very good, and we have to give credit to Axel. He just decided within the last 12 hours to join that. So that was fun. I hope Florian is proud of us. We still do the traditional USP of that and do our learnings. So I give you the first ones, Axel. Listening to an old friend, but with a different perspective. I think you never talked to him with a microphone, but probably a lot of late nights and dinners and drinks. What was the first learning you noted down in that podcast, which we can share?
Yeah, I would say that cooperation with also strong partners and like alpha animals is based on trust and freedom.
Yeah, I think that is really very unique. I have been part of a lot of ventures where there were 3 or 4 entrepreneurs, and most of the time there's a big a divorce somewhere, but they are together 20 years, and as you know them, and you mentioned it before, very strong characters, but their success based on trust and freedom. I had one learning at the early part of that interview podcast where he said, I was never motivated by like a number of hotels or by money. I was always motivated to create something I can be proud of. And I think, actually, if you think you've seen a lot more entrepreneurs than I have, I think that's a common theme of entrepreneurs who are successful, that they do actually something because they are fascinated or they want to do it right. Yeah, they're proud of doing it right.
Yeah,
I think
it's real passion.
We could feel that with him.
Yeah, I think we could feel that with Christoph a lot. I mean, he is a total hospitality guy, and he just wanted to make his dream become true.
Yeah, building a living room for himself and for all his crowd. I was also very surprised how humble he was on talking about the Schwellenangst, because he shared a theme which we had a lot of time with entrepreneurs who said, like, at the early beginning, what do I have to lose? Yeah, I started, if it doesn't work out, I go back to my Atlantic job or wherever he was before. But then he shared, and he didn't have to, but it was very humble and nice to share, that the Schwellenangst comes with the success. Yeah. Because the more you're in the spotlight now, the more he has to lose. He has built a successful chain and he sold them, and now he's trying to build another one in the same industry. We don't see a lot of people who are doing it twice in the same industry, Axel, and trying to build another brand in the same industry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, but it underlines his passion for this kind of, let's say, enterprises and projects. Huh?
True. The question is if he will ever end up in this romantic hotel with 14 rooms in south of France and running it. Now at least he could afford and build it. He also shared, like, you have to stick to the passion, and he pointed out several times the fun and the beauty of creating the brand. All of these hotels are very different. Do you think, Axel, by monitoring the hospitality or the hotel space, did 25 hours with that approach to always do new designs, new hotels, did this set a trend? Are others trying to copy that instead of cookie cutting the hotels? Do you think they were front runner on that approach?
Yes, I mean, as you know, I spent more than 10 years with Design Hotels, also a platform with individual hotels, and Christoph was for a long time before NSMore, he was a part of it. So if we look at the big brands and we look at the portfolios they create nowadays, I mean, you have Hoxton, NSMore has Hoxton, they have 25. So I think this is the answer to the demand of individualized experiences from the guests. And they take care of it, and they And even the big corporations look at much smaller brands to deliver, and I think what Christoph and his partners created was exactly that. You go to different locations in Germany first and now international. You always feel the 25 hours vibe, but you're always surprised about a new design approach or some new special services or the location, a new restaurant, a new bar. But the approach from the 25 more is more. And I think you feel it always.
Yeah.
And that's important.
But also thanks to your question, I think he really started thinking on what is actually this vibe coming from. And I think you guided him to the answer that actually, yes, there was a core culture or set of behavior set by this 25 hours more and more style. But you guided him to that answer that by working with strong other especially restaurateurs like Ahaya and the others, that these cultures melted. Yeah, so it's not the pure DNA of 25 hours; it's the DNA of 25 hours and these partners melting together. Huh?
Yeah, that's correct. But it's also 25 who's with a big. Let's see, you have a big hotel with 150 rooms, and they're stepping back and give 75% of the social, let's say, meeting rooms back to a collaboration partner like Nini, and that's also very interesting as a brand. It's brave, and it shows also competent that you step back and say, look, this is our partner, and we give them much more room we need on the ground floor.
I think this trust and collaboration is a strong theme of Christoph, and as he was the dominant leader of that for founders, it's definitely a big part of his DNA, part of 25 hours. I have two more learnings noted down. One is my favorite one, which most likely will become the title of the podcast, Embrace the Crazy Ones. Yeah, when he talked about this employees, you need to have a certain vibe there, embrace the crazy ones. And I think, Axel, at the end, when we ask him what would he recommend, I think he showed exactly what is his strength. He's a networker. He connects to people. He's not ashamed to ask. He asks a lot. He invites like hundreds of people to his construction sites and collaboration. And that's exactly what he would do with you if you would be in a crisis, to find out and pick the bits and pieces and guide you in the right direction.
Yes, and that's absolutely Christoph. I only can tell you, I mean, I'm not talking to him every week or every month, but sometimes he's just reaching out with a very precise question. Hi, I'm Christoph. Can you just give me a good collaboration partner in Porto? That's when he called me a year ago. I need a top restaurant guy in Porto. We're opening a hotel. He's very, very easygoing, and he's just straightforward. And humble.
Yes, very, very, very humble.
Very important. I think what I got out of our conversation, he's a super humble guy. He has made it. He has shown what he is capable of, but he's still super humble.
So when I think about him, I still remember this crazy. I was coincidentally in Dubai when he opened this big passion project of him, his biggest hotel with 400 whatever room. We had a lot of fun of that opening. Anyway, thank you, Axel, for taking the time and jumping in so short time. Florian, let's see. Florian needs to give us a rating, 1, 2, 3, or 5 on that. And I hope to have you soon here again. I know now we have a backup plan, Axel. So thank you for that.
Wow. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we did. But sharing is not just caring, it is also empowering. So recommend this podcast to fellow entrepreneurs who might need a dose of inspiration. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss out on future episodes. Thank you for being part of the community from Doubt to Drive Entrepreneurs Only. Mario and Florian are already gearing up for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, stay driven, and we'll be back next week.